Final Fantasy VII brought unprecedented success to the Final Fantasy franchise when it was released in 1997. Because of this, a much wider audience was introduced to the genre, and they were exposed to a thrilling combination of compelling characters, a gripping narrative, exciting skills and spells, and secrets waiting to be uncovered. Given the serious nature of the overarching story and the themes behind it, players may have also been surprised by the wackiness and dumb fun the game had to offer. Minigames were strewn throughout, and there were quirks to the combat that may have been unexpected. It meant players were treated to oddities that couldn't help but leave a smile on their faces. But this juxtaposition of fun and emotional impact was key to the magic that led to so many loving the game. Now, some of those quirks were much more obscure than others, and only the most dedicated of fans would have noticed them. As with our previous video on Final Fantasy VI, this means we want to explore secrets relating to the gameplay that many may not have even seen or heard about, whether intentional or not. So join us as we explore some of Final Fantasy VII's weirdest secrets. One secret that's not so weird though, is that we're currently running a Kickstarter campaign for our second book, which is designed to serve as a reference work for Final Fantasy summons. It's called The Guardians of the Crystal, and after smashing through our initial funding goal and some of the stretch goals, we're so excited to see the campaign continue to go from strength to strength. If you'd like to add it to your collection so you can enjoy learning about the 88 different summonable beasts that have appeared across the mainline entries, while also enjoying a foreword by Ben Starr, the voice of Clive Rossfield, you can find out more by clicking on the link in the description below. Now, it was not unusual before Final Fantasy VII for there to be a visual indication to know that a character was low on HP. This even dated back to the original game, where characters knelt down in pain to indicate that they were in need of healing. But it has also been highlighted by a change of colour for the text displaying the current HP in the user interface. In Final Fantasy VII, being on such low HP, specifically under 25%, led to both of these things happening. But characters were also applied with a specific status effect called near death. What was interesting about this is that status conditions in Final Fantasy VII always had some effect on the characters afflicted by them. This was either beneficial, such as regen or haste, or detrimental, like poison or confuse. Near death, however, didn't do anything at all. It was the result of a situation, not the cause of one. Even Fury, a status many used through the hyper item to double the rate in which their limit gauge filled, had additional negative effects. To counterbalance the limit break rush, the affected character had a reduced hit rate and took more damage from attacks. But near death was just there. It was, however, used as a reference point for various weapons, with the best example being Cloud's Ultima weapon. This got weaker as his HP got lower and changed colour to blue when in the near-death state, signifying that it wasn't at full capacity. Other weapons also used the near-death status as a trigger. Cait Sith's AP Shout functioned in the same way as Ultima Weapon did, but in the case of Tifa's Master Fist and Power Soul weapons, the reverse was true. If Tifa was in near-death status while equipped with either of those two weapons, their damage output doubled. The scenes in Final Fantasy VII depicting Cloud retelling his experience with Sephiroth in Nibelheim were some of the most iconic scenes in the entire game, and had ramifications for the story as a whole. However, the mechanics behind this flashback had some peculiar oddities. The younger Cloud that was present in the flashback was a completely separate character in terms of code than the Cloud used throughout the rest of the game. His name was Cloud by default, as opposed to adult Cloud's name being ex-soldier by default, as listed before the player could name him. In fact, the younger Cloud shared more of his coding with Cait Sith than his adult self, as they shared stat growths and the internal coding ID in order for the developers to save on resources. And when Cait Sith was introduced as the Gold Saucer, his name, portrait, level, stat, and other characteristics all just simply replaced that of young Cloud's. During the flashback, Sephiroth and Cloud then fought alongside one another, and the power gap between the two was staggering, meaning it was quite easy for Cloud to become KO'd by enemies due to his relative weakness. This then led to another interesting quirk. After the point at which Sephiroth and Cloud separated, the player controlled Cloud by himself. But if he had been KO'd beforehand, the player still found themselves, shockingly, able to continue as normal, even though the party was KO'd, which would normally result in a game over screen. This meant that Cloud could explore the Shinra mansion without a care in the world, despite being a literal dead man walking. It was even possible to have a party of KO'd characters outside of the flashback. All you needed to do was KO some characters, swap them out of the party, KO some more characters, and then swap the original KO'd characters back in to complete the KO'd party. This meant you could walk around as normal despite having a dead party. But if a battle started, the game then delivered an instant game over screen. Hopefully, the game over screen isn't something you'll hear very often though, and you'll instead get to hear the victory fanfare and the accompanying victory poses. These have always been an extremely recognisable element across the franchise, but Final Fantasy VII has some of the most well known. The image of Cloud twirling his Buster Sword often springs to mind, and this has been referenced by so many other properties. Lightning performs it while wearing the Soldier First Class outfit in Lightning Returns, and even Sora from Kingdom Hearts has performed the same action when winning at the Olympus Coliseum. However, there were instances throughout the game when the victory fanfare and the poses associated with it did not play out. Certain fights were used to highlight the gravitas of the situation, and this saw the developers opt to put the whimsy aside in favour of reflection. Specific examples were after the fight against Reno atop the Sector 7 plate before it fell, or fighting Dyne in the Coral Prison. Yuffie, known for her general exuberance, also did not celebrate after defeating her father in Wutai. It would have also been especially jarring for the player to express joy after defeating Genova Life, given the circumstances in which they had fought. But it wasn't always emotional impact that caused the party to not pose after victory. In some cases, it was the urgency of the situation that made the screen simply fade to black on the battle's conclusion. After defeating Rufus atop the Shinra Tower, for example, or beating the enemies on the coal train in Mount Coral, the party had more pressing matters than to throw their weapons around and celebrate. And on the return to Midgar to stop Hojo and Shinra once and for all, the party did not stop to laud their victories over the Turks, nor Scarlet and Heidegger in Proud Clod. There was a world to save after all. Now, Final Fantasy games have included plenty of Easter eggs over the years, but there have also been secrets, both real and rumoured, that have sent portions of the fanbase into a spin. For years, players were convinced that there were legitimate ways to revive Aerith so they could use her in the final part of the game, even though there was no legitimate evidence to ever support these claims. But in the PC re-release of Final Fantasy VII, which came out in 2012, there featured a brand new Easter egg that referenced a similarly outlandish rumoured secret, albeit from a different game. This one, however, did in fact come true. In the Northern Crater, after the party split up and found themselves in the inside Northern Cave area, it was possible to use the save crystal item to create a save point. If they did so in that specific area, then the name in the menu system changed to the Secret Cow level. This was a reference to the Diablo franchise, where the supposed hidden area was rumoured to exist in the original game. At the time, it was nothing more than a myth within the community. However, the myth made its way to Blizzard, and it became an in-joke, even referenced in StarCraft through a cheat code, "There is no cow level," until it then became a reality in Diablo 2 as an actual secret level. The name change in Final Fantasy VII serves no gameplay purpose. Instead, it's just a reference to the infamous chain of events in Diablo and the nature of PC gaming. It means that sadly, there is no physical secret cow level in Final Fantasy VII. Finding weapons in any Final Fantasy game can be a very exciting thing for players, and finding a character's strongest weapon has historically been used as an incentive for players to explore the more difficult challenges each game has to offer. The return to the Shinra HQ near the end of the game was designed in that manner. It housed some very powerful weapons, including Kate Sith's ultimate weapon, HP Shout, Cloud's Ragnarok Sword, and Barrett's ultimate weapon, Missing Score. Some of these weapons were frustrating to say the least, as many of them, including Missing Score, were permanently missable, if not obtained, during this pivotal point in the game. But one weapon in particular stood out, and it was located in an area that practically no player would have been willing to return to. When entering the Shinra building for the first time, the player had the choice of using the elevator or taking the stairs. Taking the stairs was a test of patience, as it required climbing all the flights of stairs manually, as opposed to performing a few fights if taking the elevator. During the return to Shinra, if the player chose to climb up the stairs a second time, the Behemoth horn weapon for Red 13 could be found halfway up the stairwell. With 6 materia slots and the second strongest attack stat available for Red 13, as well as a unique boost to his defensive stats, the Behemoth horn had a strong argument for being his strongest weapon, with only limited Moon having a higher attack power but offering slightly alternative utility. To anyone who actively used Red 13 during this portion of the game, it meant the Behemoth horn was a huge upgrade, and this was then very helpful against bosses like Proud Claude and Hojo. But it was so out of the way and tedious to obtain that most players very likely never even knew it was there. With Final Fantasy VII now being over 2 decades old, the majority of the game's bugs and glitches have been found. Many of these have become celebrated amongst retro gaming aficionados and speedrunners for the beneficial effects they give to players. Some of the more infamous glitches involved using the W item materia to duplicate any item the player wanted, including sources, as well as the damage overflow glitch, which causes players to deal damage that far exceeds the normal limit of 9,999. Bizarrely, numerous glitches in Final Fantasy VII though revolved around one character, Vincent. Amongst the numerous Vincent-related bugs was one that related to the Mug command, and it allowed him to skip battle animations. In order to perform this glitch, Vincent needed to equip the upgraded Steel materia, which granted access to Mug. He also needed to equip one of 5 weapons: Short Barrel, Winchester, Long Barrel R, Sniper CR, or his ultimate weapon, Death Penalty. If the prerequisites were met, and Vincent then used the Mug command, the following turn's move skipped the animation of the attack, regardless of what the attack was. In the most extreme situation, it meant Vincent could use Knights of the Round without having to watch the entire lengthy animation sequence, and attacks like Phoenix had the KO'd characters instantly jump back to life. This glitch, amongst numerous others, have been fantastic for competitive speedrunners who have looked to optimize their time when playing through the whole game. But as the Vincent Mug glitch is so easy to perform, it's also been really helpful for casual players too. Now, during the battle sequence in Final Fantasy VII, changes in damage due to status effects are frequent. But under certain conditions, players could make use of a special status effect that was exclusive to this game called All Lucky Sevens. If a player character had exactly 7,777 HP, the status All Lucky Sevens was triggered. This saw a rainbow effect cover their name in the menu, and the affected character immediately started a barrage of 64 attacks against the enemy party, with each attack dealing 7,777 damage. Then, if the enemy survived, the lucky character continued to do that level of damage with any subsequent attack until their HP changed. But this status effect could also work on enemies too. In the unlikely event that an enemy had exactly 7,777 HP, then their attack started to deal that amount of damage too until things changed, and this could make some enemies extremely dangerous. But enemies could actually achieve the status without having this specific amount of HP, due to how it was calculated, as instead of checking that the current HP value was 7,777 exactly, it checked it by seeing if the current value was that figure divided by 65,336. The other aspect around this is that if the player was effective with their use of materia, then it was possible to make a character's maximum HP 7,777 exactly. This could be achieved through a combination of HP up materias to increase the HP value, and then using red and green materia which could lower the value by specific increments. This then meant the All Lucky 7 status was granted at the start of every fight, trivializing the entire game. Against Emerald weapons specifically, this could also be manipulated, because Emerald weapons' Air Tamstorm attack dealt 1,111 damage for each materia equipped on the attacked character. This meant players could achieve the All Lucky 7 status by having their HP at maximum while only equipping 2 materia. This then meant Emerald weapon dealt 2,222 damage, placing the entire party in All Lucky 7 state, spelling its own doom. But with that, they were 7 weird secrets about Final Fantasy VII that you probably didn't know. Please share in the comments below which you found to be the most interesting, and if you enjoyed this video, feel free to hit that like button and subscribe for more. Also, if the Guardians of the Crystal piqued your interest, be sure to check out the link in the description. Alright everyone, with that, this is Daryl signing out. As always, I'd like to give a big thank you to all of our Patreon and YouTube membership supporters, especially Benjamin Snow, Chris M. Walker, Christopher Gardner, Clever Chavez, EXP Required on YouTube, Gregory, Nate's Dog, Stephen, and Zukin TDK, who are super special Onion Eye supporters, and of course, a big thank you to everyone for watching this video. I'll see you all again soon for more Final Fantasy goodness.